The lobby of Harwick Medical Center smelled the way all expensive places do, like money trying to pretend it was something else. Polished limestone floors, a waterfall feature along the north wall, fresh orchids on a console table nobody ever touched. The kind of lobby designed to make certain people feel welcome, and others feel like they'd walked through the wrong door. Daniel Aldrich Carter walked through the main entrance at 8:47 on a Tuesday morning wearing a gray Henley, dark jeans, and work boots that had seen better decades. He carried nothing except a phone and a folded piece of paper in his back pocket. He did not look around the lobby the way visitors usually did, taking in the height of the ceilings, the sweep of the atrium. He looked at the front desk the way a man looks at something he has already decided about. There were two people behind the desk. One was young, early 20s, occupied with something on a screen. The other was a woman in her mid-30s with the posture of someone who had been told, many times, that she represented the institution. Her name tag read Claire Sutton, and she saw Daniel before he reached the counter, assessed him in the space of 2 seconds, and arranged her expression accordingly. "Good morning," she said. "How can I help you?" "I have a meeting," Daniel said. "8th floor." Claire Sutton looked at her screen. "Do you have an appointment?" "I do." "With whom?" "Harwick leadership," he said. She looked up, not at him exactly, more at the category of him, the boots, the Henley, the absence of a briefcase as a lanyard, anything that would have told her what kind of person to treat him as. "I'll need a name," she said. Specifically, "Daniel Carter. I'm expected." She typed, a pause. The young man beside her glanced over, then back at his screen. "I'm not seeing anything," Claire said. "Try the executive calendar or the medical director's office." Something shifted in her expression. Not much. Just enough to tell him she had noticed the specificity and chosen to interpret it as presumption rather than information. "Sir, if you don't have a confirmed appointment in our system, I can't issue a visitor badge for the executive floor. That's protocol." "I understand," Daniel said. He did not raise his voice. He did not shift his weight or grip the edge of the counter. He stood the way a man stands when he is in no particular hurry because he already knows how the situation ends. "Could you call up to the 8th floor, Veronica Strand's office, or the administrator on duty, M's? Strand is in meetings until 11. She'll want to know I'm here." Claire Sutton looked at him for a moment. "I can take a message to pass along when she's available." "That's not what I asked," Daniel said. The temperature between them didn't change exactly, but something crystallized. Claire straightened slightly and put both hands flat on the desk. "Sir, I'm trying to help you within what I'm authorized to do. If you don't have a documented appointment, the most I can offer is to leave your name with her assistant and have someone follow up by end of day. If you'd like to take a seat in the waiting area." "I've been coming to this hospital for 11 years, Daniel said quietly. "I know where the waiting area is." He said it without inflection. He was not performing patience. He was simply stating a fact the way a man does when facts are the only currency he's willing to spend. Claire Sutton handed him a small card with a number on it. "If you'd like to call this line directly, they can verify your appointment and we can issue credentials at that time." Daniel looked at the card. He took it. He walked to the row of chairs near the waterfall and sat down, and he did not look at his phone the way agitated people do. He looked at the water and was still. He had driven 4 hours to be here, not because he had to. There were people, several of them, who had offered to arrange a teleconference, to send documents ahead, to handle the first conversation remotely and spare him the trip. He had declined each time without explaining why. The people who needed to understand would understand. The others didn't matter. Daniel Carter was 51 years old. He had been a working physician for 22 of those years, a researcher for 9 of them, and for the last 4 years he had been, quietly, something else entirely, something that did not have a title on a business card, because titles, in his experience, had a way of making people behave differently than they otherwise would. His father, James Harold Carter, had built the Carter Medical Group from a single family practice in Dayton, Ohio, into a network of 17 outpatient clinics across the Midwest. When James died 3 years ago, he left it to Daniel in a trust so structured that the lawyers had needed a full afternoon to walk through the provisions. Daniel had let them talk. He had understood the document before they finished the first paragraph. The Carter Medical Group had 18 months ago entered into a quiet acquisition discussion with Harwick Health Systems, a regional hospital network operating 6 facilities in 4 states, including the flagship Harwick Medical Center, whose lobby Daniel Carter was now sitting in. The discussion had proceeded slowly, then quickly, then slowly again. There had been a pause. The pause had lasted 6 weeks, And then someone at Harwick had sent a memo, internal, never meant to leave the building, that described the Carter Medical Group as a legacy asset with limited growth alignment, and recommended that Harwick leadership allow the acquisition conversation to expire rather than invest further in a structure that may not serve our 5-year model. Daniel had read that memo on a Sunday evening at his kitchen table in Columbus. He had read it twice. Then he had made 3 phone calls and driven 4 hours on a Tuesday morning. He sat for 14 minutes. He knew it was 14 minutes because he tracked time the way people track time when time is something they spend with intention. Across the lobby, a family came in. 2 adults and a child with her arm in a temporary splint. The child making it very clear she was fine. The parents making it very clear they disagreed. A hospital administrator in a blazer walked through at speed, phone to his ear, not looking at anyone. A delivery man arrived with a dolly stacked with supply boxes and navigated to a side corridor without being asked where he was going. At the 14-minute mark, Daniel took out his phone and sent a text, 12 words. 30 seconds later, his phone rang. He answered it, listened for less than 10 seconds, said thank you, and ended the call. Then he stood, walked back to the front desk, and waited. Claire Sutton looked up. "I believe someone from the 8th floor will be coming down shortly," Daniel said. She blinked. Her eyes moved briefly to the phone on her desk, which had not rung, and then back to him. "I haven't received any." The elevator on the east wall opened. A woman in her late 40s came out at a pace that was not quite a run. She was Priya Mehta, senior executive assistant to Harwick's medical director, and she was wearing the expression of someone who had just been told something that rearranged their understanding of the morning. "Mr. Carter," she said, reaching him. "I'm so sorry. We had a miscommunication in the scheduling system. I cannot apologize enough." "It's all right," Daniel said. "If you'll come with me. Dr. Strand is available. She's cleared her 9 o'clock. We have the full conference suite. I appreciate that." He followed Priya Mehta toward the elevator. At the threshold, he paused and turned back toward the front desk. Claire Sutton was standing very still. "Thank you for your help," Daniel said. He meant it without irony. That was the thing about Daniel Carter. He had spent enough years watching people confuse composure with coldness that he had stopped trying to correct the misread. Those who knew him knew. Those who didn't eventually did. The elevator doors closed. The 8th floor was a different building. That was the honest way to describe it. The same structure, the same address, the same institution. But the 8th floor had carpet instead of limestone. And the lighting was warmer, and there were no orchids because nobody up here was trying to make an impression. They already had one. Priya Mehta walked him past a row of glass-walled offices to a conference room at the end of the corridor. Through the glass, Daniel could see 4 people standing, not sitting, because sitting would have communicated the wrong thing. They were standing the way people stand when they've had 4 minutes to compose themselves, and are using those 4 minutes to negotiate their posture. He recognized 2 of them from photographs. Veronica Strand, the hospital's medical director, was 63, gray-haired, with a reputation for efficiency that her staff described as bracing. Beside her was Theodore Holt, the chief operating officer, whose memo, the one about legacy assets and limited growth alignment, Daniel had read on that Sunday evening. Theodore Holt was a man who had spent a long time in rooms full of people who agreed with him, and it showed in the way he held himself, certain until he wasn't. The other 2 were people Daniel didn't know by name yet but would before the morning was out. He made note of them the way he made note of everything, without apparent effort, cataloging detail the way a physician catalogs symptoms, not to judge but to understand. Priya Mehta opened the conference room door. "Dr. Carter," Veronica Strand said, and extended her hand. Her grip was firm and her eye contact was direct, and Daniel appreciated both. "Dr. Strand," he said, "please." She gestured to the table. "Sit down. Can we get you anything? Coffee, if it's available." It was available. Someone left to get it immediately. Theodore Holt offered his hand. "Ted Holt." "We've corresponded." "We have," Daniel said. There was a pause that lasted exactly as long as it needed to. Theodore Holt had written a memo. Daniel Carter had read it. Both of them knew this, and neither of them had said so yet, and the air in the room held that fact the way a room holds the memory of a sound after it stopped. They sat. Coffee arrived. Someone closed the door. Veronica Strand put her hands on the table. "Dr. Carter, let me be direct with you, because I think that's what this situation calls for." "Please," Daniel said. "We became aware this morning that the scheduling failure was on our end. That should not have happened, and I take full responsibility for it. But I also want to acknowledge something broader." She paused. "You drove here from Columbus. You didn't call ahead in a way that announced your arrival. You sat in our lobby for, she glanced at Meta. 14 minutes, Daniel said. 14 minutes, and in that time our front desk staff didn't recognize who you were and treated you accordingly. She said it plainly. That's a problem. Not for the reason you might expect, not because you're someone important, though you are, but because the way we receive people at that desk reflects what we actually believe about people, regardless of who they turn out to be. Daniel looked at her. He had not expected this. Tell me, he said. What Veronica Strand told him over the next 40 minutes was this. Harwick Medical Center had been struggling. Not financially. On paper, the numbers were defensible. But the hospital had developed what she called a culture of stratification. It had begun small, different waiting rooms, priority access tiers, a VIP concierge program added 3 years ago at the board's insistence. Reasonable, at first. Logical. The kind of thing that looked sensible in a PowerPoint and felt wrong in practice. We started building a hospital, she said. That was better at some people than it was at others. And the staff learned to read people. Quickly, walk in wearing the right clothes, speak the right way, and every door opens. Walk in looking like she stopped herself. Like I did this morning, Daniel said. Yes. Theodore Holt was quiet. He had been quiet for most of the meeting, which was not, Daniel had assessed, his natural state. The memo had been Holt's idea. The VIP tier had been Holt's recommendation. He was a man who had spent years optimizing a machine without asking what the machine was for. The memo, Daniel said. Holt met his eyes. I'm not angry about it, Daniel said. I want you to understand that before you explain it. What I want to understand is the thinking, not the business logic. I've read the business logic. The actual thinking. Theodore Holt was quiet for a long time, long enough that Veronica Strand glanced at him. We looked at your network, Holt said finally, and we saw a collection of clinics. Mid-size, regional, good reputation but modest growth. We looked at your structure and thought, small operation, probably family-run, probably resistant to integration. We thought the better opportunity was to let it go and pursue a different partner in Q3. You were looking at the summary, Daniel said. Holt stopped. The Carter Medical Group is not a collection of clinics, Daniel said. He said it without emphasis, the way a physician states a diagnosis. We hold active service contracts with 4 regional hospital networks, including 2 of Harwick's direct competitors. We have a proprietary patient data infrastructure that took 8 years to build, which 3 health systems have tried to license and none have been able to replicate. We employ 47 physicians, 11 of whom are fellowship-trained in specialties that Harwick currently outsources. He paused. And we have a real estate portfolio, the buildings our clinics operate from, that was appraised last year at $94 million. The room was quiet. What you saw, Daniel said, was a man in work boots who didn't call ahead. What you had was the deed to the building. Nobody spoke for a moment. It was not a dramatic silence. Daniel hadn't intended it to be. He had said the thing because it was true and because the room needed to hear it, not because he was performing revelation. He was tired of performances. He had been tired of them for years. The theater of importance, the costuming of credibility. He had watched his father dress up for meetings he shouldn't have needed to dress up for, and he had decided somewhere along the way that he would not do that. He would arrive as he was and let people decide what to do with that. Most of the time, they figured it out eventually. This was one of the times. I want to show you something, Veronica Strand said. She opened a folder and slid a document across the table. It was a proposal, not the one Daniel's team had submitted, but a new one drafted. He could see from the date in the last 72 hours. It was thorough. It addressed the integration points that the original conversation had stalled on. It proposed a structure that preserved the Carter Medical Group's operational identity while connecting it to Harwick's system infrastructure. Daniel looked at it. This was drafted before this morning? He asked. Before this morning, Strand confirmed. We had already decided internally that we had made an error. That memo, Ted's memo, was circulated and 2 of our board members flagged it. One of them knows your father's work. She paused. James Carter built something real. His son built something realer. We missed it because we were looking at the wrong things. Daniel read the first 2 pages of the proposal. He read the way he always read, completely, without skipping, without anticipating, giving every sentence the consideration it was due. The room waited. There are 3 provisions I'd want to discuss, he said. Of course, Strand said. The patient data infrastructure stays under Carter operational control during any transition period. Non-negotiable, agreed. The clinic staff, all 47 support employees, come over with their existing benefit structures intact, not converted to Harwick's tier system. Strand glanced at Holt. Holt nodded once. The third is personal, Daniel said. He looked at the table for a moment, then at Strand. The VIP tier, the stratification program, I want that reviewed. Not ended necessarily, I understand the revenue logic, but reviewed with a commitment to putting clinical equity as a factor in whatever it becomes. Not as a PR initiative, as an operational principle. The room was very still. That's not a business condition, Holt said slowly. No, Daniel agreed, it's not. Veronica Strand looked at Daniel Carter for a long moment. She was 63 years old and had spent 4 decades in medicine, which meant she had spent 4 decades watching the distance between what institutions said they valued and what they actually did. She was not, at this point in her life, easily moved. Done, she said. They broke for lunch at 12:30. While the others went down to the cafeteria or made calls, Daniel rode the elevator back down to the lobby. He walked to the coffee station near the east entrance and poured himself a cup from the self-service machine, the same one available to any visitor who walked in off the street. Claire Sutton was still at the front desk. He walked over. She saw him coming and her face did something complicated. The sequence of expressions that moves through a person when they realize the scale of what they've misread. Mr. Carter, she said. Daniel. She didn't know what to do with that. I owe you an apology, she said. This morning I should have. You were following protocol, Daniel said. I know what Harwick's protocol looks like because I've been reviewing it for months. The protocol is the problem, not you. She blinked. The system you're working in, he said, tells you to sort people at the door, to make a call in about 2 seconds about who belongs and who doesn't, and you're good at it, probably. Most people in that role are. The issue is what the system is asking you to be good at. He paused. That's going to change. He said it simply, not as a promise, not as a threat, as a statement about what was going to happen. Claire Sutton looked at him. She had been at that desk for 3 years. She had in that time developed exactly the assessment skills Harwick had trained her to develop. She had gotten very good at knowing within seconds what category a person belonged to. She had not until this morning asked herself whether she should. What will it look like, she asked, when it changes? I don't know exactly, Daniel said, but the starting point is that the desk shouldn't be a filter. It should be a door. He left his coffee cup at the recycling station and went back to the elevator. The afternoon session lasted 3 hours. By 4 o'clock, the 3 provisions Daniel had named were in the draft agreement. By 4:45, the Carter Medical Group's legal team, who had been on standby in Columbus since that morning, had reviewed the revised document. By 5:15, both parties had signed a letter of intent. Theodore Holt shook Daniel's hand at the conference room door. The handshake lasted the right amount of time, not too firm, not too brief. The shake of a man who had recalibrated. I should have looked harder, Holt said. Most people look at the surface, Daniel said. It's faster, usually good enough. He let a moment pass. This time it wasn't. Holt nodded. He didn't say anything else because there wasn't anything else to say. Veronica Strand walked Daniel to the elevator. She had the manner of someone who had gotten what they came for and was honest enough to say so. Your father would have done this differently, she said. Yes, Daniel agreed. He would have sent a lawyer first, and you drove yourself. I wanted to see the building, Daniel said. You can tell a lot about an institution from its lobby. Strand looked at him. And what did ours tell you? He considered the question. That you're capable of something better than what you've been, he said, which is the only thing worth knowing, really. The elevator arrived. He stepped in. We'll be in touch before Friday, he said. The doors closed. He sat in his truck in the parking structure for a few minutes before starting the engine. He did this sometimes. Took the transition between one thing and the next, instead of collapsing the two together. His father had never done this. James Carter had moved from meeting to meeting, city to city, decision to decision, with the momentum of a man who believed stopping was the same as stalling. Daniel had loved his father completely and learned from him constantly, including learning which of his habits to leave behind. He took the folded piece of paper from his back pocket. He had put it there this morning as a kind of reminder, not that he would need it, but that he had at some point needed to write it down, which meant it had been worth carrying. It was a list, not of the provisions he'd intended to negotiate, not of the financial terms or the integration timeline, just a list of the things his father had said years ago when Daniel had asked him why he bothered building clinics in neighborhoods that didn't turn a clean profit. Because somebody will. And if it's not us, it'll be someone who only cares about the margin. You show up. You treat people like they matter. The rest follows. Daniel folded the paper and put it back in his pocket. He started the engine. The drive home to Columbus was 4 hours. He had a call scheduled at 7 with his operations director and another at 8:30 with the Carter Foundation Board. He would eat something on the road and think through the transition structure and probably not sleep until 11. It was by any measure a good day. Not because of what had been signed, not because of the letter of intent or the $94 million, or the fact that the medical director of a 6-hospital system had said the word done to his third condition without blinking. Those things mattered. He wasn't going to pretend they didn't. But the thing he would think about driving home was the question Claire Sutton had asked at the coffee station. What will it look like when it changes? He didn't know the full answer yet. He knew the starting point, a desk that was a door, not a filter. He knew the principal his father had named on a Tuesday evening in Dayton, Ohio 20 years ago, when Daniel was still a resident and still learning what kind of doctor, what kind of person he intended to become. You show up. You treat people like they matter. The rest follows. He had driven 4 hours on a Tuesday morning wearing work boots and a gray Henley, carrying nothing but a phone and a folded piece of paper. He had sat in a lobby for 14 minutes while a polished machine sorted him into the wrong category. He had waited and been still and said the true things when the time came to say them. The building was already his. He had just wanted to see what they'd do with the door.